Hello, everybody. It's Phil Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. And today is September 10th, 2021. It is a Friday. Click on the subscribe button below to subscribe to our episodes, future episodes, and also the notification bell in the upper right, where it's supposed to ensure that you get notified when new episodes are released. Today, I want to talk to you about why academics dislike Confederate statues. The reason most academics condemn Confederate statues is that most have too much idle time, as documented by Price's square root law. Derek Price, 1922 to 1983, was a British physicist who discovered that half of the scientific papers published in a given field are authored by the square root of the number of participating authors. Thus, if 100 papers are written by 25 authors, only 5 of the authors have contributed 50 papers, half of the papers. Similarly, if 1,000 papers are written by 100 authors, 10 authors will have contributed 500 papers, half of the papers. Now, the application of Price's square root law to the number of academics publishing, quote, research on the Civil War implies that the great majority are idle. If there are only 100 professors publishing research, 10 of them are doing half the work. The other 90 are pretty much just average or idle, and their laziness causes them to mimic the opinions of the energetic profs that are doing half of the publishing. But if there are 1,000 professors, which maybe there could be across the United States doing supposedly focusing on Civil War, then 32 of them are doing half of the work. That is the square root of 1,000. Beyond indoctrinating their students with anti-Southern interpretations prepared by the 32 active authors, the other 968, almost 970 out of 1,000, are merely collecting a paycheck. And if it's a public university, it's at our expense. Note how, note how the number of loafing professors increases much more rapidly than the number of productive profs. To be specific, it grows by the square of the number of energetic profs. The wasteful ones grow by the square of the number of energetic ones. Thus, if the academy doubles the number of active Civil War profs that do half the publishing, the number of gold brickers quadruples. Similarly, if the number of active profs triples, the number of those with sinecures increases 9-fold. Now, Price's law also explains why there is so much gold bricking in large universities. A college with 100 professors has room for 90 average performers and slackers. But a university with 400 professors has room for 380 average and slackers, because the square root of 400 is 20, and 400 minus 20 is 380. So the number of average and slackers grows from 900 to 380, over 4-fold. Now, in the second example, there's a lot of room for wasteful administrative departments, for example, which might include some involved in so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion regulations. But Price's law has even more implications. Consider affirmative action admissions. A college with 100 students will have a combined 90 slots for average and affirmative action students. But a college with 10,000 students will have 9,900 such slots. And that's because the square root of 10,000 is 100, and 10,000 minus 100 is 9,900. There's a huge increase in the number of average students and below average students which might be categorized as affirmative action students, such as female and Black, that have lower, or better, I guess the better term is preferential admissions for them because they have lower ACT and SAT scores on average. I'm not speaking of all of them. Now, in general, as the usefulness, here's the general, and in general, as the usefulness of a university increases, the waste within it grows by the square of the usefulness growth. In other words, when the useful work of a university doubles, the waste quadruples. And when the useful work triples, the waste increases ninefold. Finally, Price's law can be applied to any organization, whether in business or government. It partly explains why big companies tend to become obsolete. A small, productive group of employees can leave and set up a competitor that eventually becomes dominant. Intel, for example, was once a startup formed by a small group of ex-Fairchild semiconductor workers. Today, Fairchild is almost unknown and a vague memory, but Intel is dominant in the semiconductor field. This rarely happens in the academies, where the chief pursuit is often job security through tenure, as opposed to the productivity of their work. Now consider, for example, the media. The media industry is another example. Now, the New York Times has 4,500 employees, which means, under Price's law, that about 65 of them are contributing half of the work. So you got a waste there, or average performers and waste, of over 4,400. Now the Daily Wire, which is a rising competitor, has about 100 employees, which means they've only got about 90 average performing or subpar performing workers. That's a big difference. Daily Wire waste equals 90 employees. New York Times waste equals 4,400 or more. And the percentage is 4,400 over 4,500 would be the percentage of waste at the New York Times, whereas 90 over 100 would be the waste at the Daily Wire. You can see that's a bigger percentage, a bigger percentage, and a far bigger number of wasted employees at the New York Times. So that's my story for today. What I'd like to do is to share my screen and bring to your attention this book, which I authored, Trading with the Enemy. It discusses the trading between the North and the South during the American Civil War, when the Northerners basically wanted Southern cotton. And about 2/3 of the cotton that was taken out of the South during the Civil War went to the North, even though they were the enemy. So twice as much cotton from the South during the Civil War went to the North than went through the maritime blockade, with blockade runners like the fictional Rhett Butler, to Europe. Now, there's a lot of intrigue here, and one reason it's not often discussed by other Civil War writers is that there are really no heroes here. There's a lot of under the table type of dealing, and one Rhode Island senator was even involved in trading weapons for cotton in Texas. So that if you'd like to get a copy of Trading with the Enemy, you can buy one at Barnes & Noble or Amazon or other fine bookstores. I think it's $26. It's a hardcover book. If you want to get an autographed copy, you can email me and I'll sell it to you for $29, and I'll cover postage if you're here in the United States. But you got to email me, Phil, PHIL_Leigh, LEIGH @me.com. Okay, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching.